Welcome back to the English Playbook. I'm David.
And I'm Sarah. Thanks so much for joining us today.
So, Sarah, today we're diving into a topic that's, well, it's a bit heavy, but super important for English learners at the upper intermediate level.
That's right. We're talking about divorce, the vocabulary, the phrases, and the cultural context around it. Now, before anyone gets worried, this isn't a depressing episode. It's actually fascinating how much language revolves around this life event.
Exactly. Whether you're watching English movies, reading novels, or just trying to understand conversations, divorce-related vocabulary comes up all the time. So we've got a dialogue to share, tons of useful phrases, and some really interesting cultural insights.
And stick around until the end because we'll be doing a fun, rapid-fire vocabulary review that'll really cement these words in your memory.
All right, let's jump right in. Sarah, want to set up our dialogue?
Sure. So we're about to hear a conversation between Joanne and Jeff. They're a couple going through a divorce, and they're in the process of dividing up their property, deciding who gets what.
Yeah, and it starts off pretty tense. They're trying to keep things civil, but you can feel the bitterness underneath. But here's the twist. As they go through their old belongings, they start remembering the good times.
Oh, I love this. It's bittersweet, which makes it so realistic. Real divorces aren't just angry and bitter. They're complicated, full of mixed emotions.
Absolutely. All right, let's listen to the dialogue. Pay attention to the vocabulary. We'll break it all down afterward.
Wow. Okay, that escalated quickly at the end there.
Right, just when you think they're getting back together, boom, the motorcycle revelation.
Classic. But let's break down the vocabulary because there were some seriously advanced words in there. David, want to start with the first one?
Absolutely. Let's talk about acrimonious. This is what we call an SAT word in America.
Which means it's college prep level, pretty advanced. Jeff says, let's not make this divorce any more acrimonious than it already is. So Sarah, what does acrimonious mean?
It means bitter, angry, and emotionally charged. When a divorce is acrimonious, there's a lot of hostility between the two people. Think angry arguments, resentment, blame.
Exactly. It's the opposite of an amicable divorce, which would be peaceful and friendly.
Right. And here's an important note for our listeners. You typically use acrimonious to describe relationships or interactions between people, not just any difficult situation.
Good point. You wouldn't say this test is acrimonious. That doesn't work. But you could say their breakup was so acrimonious that they stopped speaking entirely.
Perfect example. Now, let's move to a word you hear all the time in movies and TV shows, prenup.
Oh, yes. Every celebrity drama involves a prenup.
Exactly. So a prenup, which is short for prenuptial agreement, is basically a contract you sign before getting married.
And nuptial means relating to marriage, so prenuptial means before marriage.
Right. In this contract, you and your future spouse agree on what happens to your money, property, and assets if you get divorced.
It's essentially financial protection, like if we split up, I keep my business and you keep your inheritance, that kind of thing.
Exactly. And while it might seem unromantic, a lot of people, especially those with significant wealth or business interests, get prenups to avoid complicated legal battles later.
Jeff mentions, I should have signed a prenup, which tells us he's regretting not having that protection now that they're dividing everything up.
Poor Jeff. Okay, next up is alimony.
Another legal term related to money. Joanne says, my lawyer tells me you've accepted our alimony proposal.
So alimony is ongoing financial support that one spouse pays to the other after divorce. It's different from a one-time property division. This is like monthly payments.
Right. For example, if one spouse gave up their career to raise kids while the other worked, the working spouse might pay alimony to help the other person get back on their feet financially.
Exactly. It's not automatic in every divorce, but it's common when there's a big income difference between the spouses.
Now, while alimony is about money, division of property is about physical assets.
Right. That's the house, cars, furniture, bank accounts, investments, all the stuff you accumulated during the marriage.
In the dialogue, they're literally going through their belongings. Like, I get the records, you get the gramophone, who gets the tea set?
Which brings us to another important word, custody.
Okay, so custody is about who takes care of someone or something. We usually hear this with children, like who gets the custody of the kids.
Right. In a divorce, one parent might get full custody, meaning the children live with them primarily, or they might share joint custody.
But in our dialogue, it's actually about pets. I keep the cat and you get the dog.
Which is actually a real thing. People do fight over custody of their pets in divorce proceedings.
Absolutely. Custody basically means legal responsibility and care for another living being.
All right, now we come to a really fun word, gramophone.
Yes, so a gramophone is this old-fashioned music player from like the early 1900s.
Picture this, a wooden box with a hand crank and a big horn on top where the sound comes out. You'd put a vinyl record on it, wind it up, and boom, music.
It's what people used before radios, record players, CDs, and definitely before Spotify.
In the dialogue, it's an antique gramophone, which brings us to that word. Antique means very old and valuable, usually over 100 years old.
Right. You can use it as an adjective like an antique table or as a noun, like that's a valuable antique.
Okay, last word in this section, concede.
Jeff says, I'll concede the silly gramophone.
To concede means to give up, to admit defeat in an argument, or to let someone have their way even though you don't fully agree.
Yeah, it's like saying, fine, you win, I give up. You hear this a lot in politics, too. When a candidate loses an election, they concede to their opponent. They formally admit they lost.
Great example. So if I say I'll concede that point to you, I'm saying, okay, you're right about that. I won't argue anymore.
Perfect. All right, David, we've covered 6 major vocabulary words. Should we move on to phrases?
Let's do it.
Okay, so now we're going to look at 4 really useful phrases that native speakers use all the time.
These are the kind of expressions that'll make you sound much more natural and fluent.
First up, let's get this over with.
Oh, I use this all the time.
So do I. It means let's just finish this quickly. Usually something you don't want to do, but you know you have to do.
Right. Like, if you have to go to the dentist and you're dreading it, you might think, okay, let me just get this over with.
Or imagine you have a really boring meeting at work. You might say to a colleague, let's just get through this presentation and get it over with.
Exactly. It implies you want to finish something unpleasant as quickly as possible so you can move on.
In the dialogue, Joanne says, I just want to get this over with about the divorce process. She doesn't want to drag it out. She wants to finish and move forward.
Which actually leads perfectly into our next phrase, make a clean break.
Yes, Joanne says it's important we make a clean break.
So, a clean break means to end a relationship completely and definitively. No contact, no mixed signals, no dragging things out.
Right. You don't call each other. You don't meet up as friends. You don't keep tabs on their social media.
Ah, yes, the modern version of not making a clean break.
Exactly. A clean break is when you completely sever ties and move on with your lives separately.
Now, interestingly, you can also use this phrase for physical breaks. Like, if you break your arm, a doctor might say, it was a clean break, meaning the bone broke completely in one place without shattering.
Good point. But in relationships, it's definitely about completely ending contact.
All right, third phrase, drag this out.
Joanne says, I don't want to drag this out any more than necessary.
To drag something out means to make it take longer than it needs to extend or prolong something unnecessarily.
Like if someone's telling a story and they keep adding irrelevant details, you might think, ugh, they're really dragging this story out.
We've all been there. Or imagine you're in a meeting that should take 30 minutes, but it goes on for 2 hours.
Yeah, someone's definitely dragging that reading out.
In the dialogue context, Joanne doesn't want to keep arguing back and forth. She wants to make decisions quickly and end the divorce process.
Makes sense. And our last phrase is probably my favorite, on the rocks.
Oh, this is such a good one. Jeff says, I know our relationship has been on the rocks for some time.
So if something's on the rocks, it's in trouble, struggling, not going well.
Think about a ship trying to sail over rocky water. It's difficult, bumpy, dangerous. That's the imagery here.
Right. So you could say, my company has been on the rocks lately, meaning business isn't good.
Or their marriage has been on the rocks for years. They've been having serious problems.
Now, there's one important thing to mention. If you order a drink on the rocks, that's completely different.
Yes, whiskey on the rocks means whiskey with ice, totally unrelated.
Right. So context matters. If you're talking about a relationship, business, or situation being on the rocks, it means it's struggling. If you're ordering at a bar, it means you want ice.
Perfect distinction. Okay, David, I think we've covered the main phrases really well.
Agreed. Should we talk a bit about divorce culture before we wrap up?
Yes, so we've talked about all this vocabulary, but let's discuss the cultural reality of divorce, especially in English-speaking countries.
Right. So the statistics in the US are pretty striking. About 40 to 50% of marriages end in divorce.
Wow, so basically 1 in 2 marriages.
Yeah, it's incredibly common. And interestingly, second marriages have an even higher divorce rate, around 60 to 67%.
That's fascinating. Why do you think that is?
Well, some experts say people might rush into second marriages without addressing the issues from their first marriage. Or maybe they have more complicated situations with kids from previous relationships.
That makes sense. Now, divorce hasn't always been this common, right?
No, definitely not. Divorce rates really started climbing in the 1970s and 80s. Before that, there was much more social stigma around divorce.
Right, it was seen as shameful or a failure, but cultural attitudes have really shifted.
Exactly. Now it's generally accepted that if a marriage isn't working, it's healthier to separate than to stay in an unhappy relationship.
Especially if there are children involved. Research shows that kids can be negatively impacted by witnessing constant conflict between parents.
That's a really good point. Sometimes divorce is actually the better option for everyone's mental health and well-being.
Now, it's worth noting that divorce laws and cultural attitudes vary widely around the world.
Absolutely. And some countries like the Philippines and Vatican City, divorce is actually illegal or extremely restricted.
Really? So what do people do?
Well, they might get annulments instead, which is declaring the marriage invalid from the beginning as if it never happened.
That's so interesting. And it shows how culture, religion, and law all intersect on this topic.
Right. So for our international listeners, we'd love to hear from you. What's divorce like in your country? Is it common? Are there legal restrictions?
Yes, please share in the comments. We love learning about different cultural perspectives.
All right, Sarah, we're coming up on the end of our episode. Time for our rapid-fire vocabulary review.
I love this part. Okay, I'll give a definition, and you, listeners, see if you can shout out the word before David does.
Ready? Here we go.
Sarah, bitter, angry, and full of hostility, describing a relationship or divorce.
David, acrimonious.
Sarah, a contract signed before marriage that determines what happens financially if you divorce.
David, prenup or prenuptial agreement.
Sarah, monthly payments one spouse makes to another after divorce.
David, alimony.
Sarah, legal responsibility and care for children or pets.
David, custody.
Sarah, to give up or admit defeat in an argument.
David, concede.
Sarah, a complete and definitive end to a relationship with no further contact.
David, make a clean break.
Sarah, to extend or prolong something unnecessarily.
David, drag it out.
Sarah, struggling or in trouble, describing a relationship or situation.
David, on the rocks.
Sarah, and finally, to quickly finish something unpleasant.
David, get it over with.
Excellent. How did you all do at home?
All right, everyone, that wraps up today's episode of the English Playbook.
We hope you learned some valuable vocabulary and phrases today. Even though divorce is a heavy topic, these words and expressions are incredibly useful for understanding English media and conversations.
Absolutely. And remember, learning English isn't just about memorizing words, it's about understanding the cultural context too.
So true. If you enjoyed today's episode, please give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you never miss an episode.
And drop a comment telling us what topics you'd like us to cover next.
Thanks so much for listening, everyone. Until next time.
Keep playing with English.